Donald sat on the park bench eating his lunch, a ham and cheese sandwich he made himself at home along with a small bag of chips and a can of soda pop. It was summer, so all the kids were out of school. He watched as a bunch of high school-age kids were playing a game of ultimate frisbee, paying particular attention to the lithe young ladies and the tight clothes they were wearing. It never ceased to amaze him how the guys always wore the baggiest clothes possible, baggy shorts and a shirt or jersey that was 1 or 2 sizes too large. On the other hand, the girls always seemed to wear the tightest body-hugging clothes that left little to the imagination. And Donald had quite a vivid imagination. He frequently dreamed of what he could do if he had a body like these girls, and wondered if they truly appreciated what they had. Donald would never consider harming another human being, and those thoughts were the farthest from what was on his mind as he watched. He would never dream of doing anything harmful, aggressive, or suggestive to these girls. His one and only wish was one that he knew he could never have, to have been born as one of them. So he simply watched them running up and down the field and imagined if it were only him. It was a feeling he'd had since he was very young. So far back that he couldn't remember if and where he first came across the notion that he would have preferred it if he had been born a girl. All he knew was that it was a feeling that was so ingrained in him that it just felt right. Unfortunately, he always knew it was just a dream. He knew his parents would never allow such talk, so all through his formative years he kept the feelings inside. Nobody had a clue. In his senior year of high school, he met a girl named Anna and they fell in love. As much as he loved the girl, he hoped that she would also be his salvation. He had such a fascination for the feminine physique that he hoped that having Anna next to him would quell his desires. They were married shortly after high school and settled into a life of their own. All outward appearances were that they had the perfect marriage, and weren't just happy together, they were made for each other. Anna appeared to be the happiest woman on earth, and Donald couldn't be happier himself, except his desires did not go away. Any time he saw a pretty young girl, he still imagined what it would be like to be her. And when he was with Anna, he couldn't help but imagine what it would be like to trade places with her, especially in bed. Yes, the feelings were still there, and they were as strong as ever. And still, nobody had a clue. A small alarm started to go off. Donald looked down at his watch and confirmed that his lunch hour was just about over and he needed to get back to the office. For the last 5 years Donald had worked as an accountant and moving slowly up the corporate ladder, was making pretty good money for himself and his wife who he was still madly in love with. Anna was working as a nursing assistant and was going to college in her spare time to get her nursing degree. Between the two of them they were making decent money and living quite comfortably and happily. Donald packed up the scraps that remained of his lunch and deposited them in the nearest garbage bin. Taking one last look over his shoulder to see what he was missing out on, he headed back to his desk to finish off his workday. Donald was very good at what he did. Still, on this day he couldn't keep his mind on his work. No, it wasn't the girls in the park that were on his mind, although the thought of them were ever present. He learned long ago how to keep them from distracting him. Today was Donald's birthday, and he knew Anna would have something planned. She always did. Anna never missed a birthday or anniversary. But more than that, she was creative and cunning. She could always find a new and exciting way to celebrate an event, and it was something Donald always looked forward to. You never knew what she was going to do next, or what gift to expect from her, although she always seemed to buy the perfect gift. When the clock on the wall said it was time to go, Donald wasted no time heading home. As Donald walked up to his apartment, he tried to maintain his composure. He noticed all the shades were drawn shut so he could not see inside. Donald did not want it to be overly apparent that he was as excited as a 5-year-old on Christmas morning, but on the other hand just couldn't imagine what Anna had behind that door. He knew it had to be the best gift ever. Donald reached for the doorknob and turned it. It was locked. Fumbling for his keys, he was so nervous that he could barely get the key into the lock to open the door. And as he opened the door, he saw nothing. As he closed the door behind him and set his stuff down, he noticed the apartment was completely dark. As his eyes adjusted, he noticed that in the dining room there was a single lit candle on the middle of the table. It flickered with just enough light to show there was a piece of paper laying on the table right beside it. Donald picked up the paper. It simply read, "Happy birthday," nothing more. A sense of uneasiness crept across Donald's mind. He was no longer excited. He really did not know exactly what to think. From out of the shadows behind him, a pair of arms wrapped themselves around his waist. He could smell Anna's perfume as she placed her head on his right shoulder and said, "Happy birthday, lover." "Scared ya, didn't I?" Yes, you did," he responded as he turned around and kissed her. She passionately kissed him back. "Are you ready?" she asked. He did not know what exactly to be ready for, but he responded that he was. With the apartment still darkened, she led him by the hand to the living room and motioned for him to sit on the love seat as she did the same right beside him. She handed him a glass of wine, saying this was only the start of the celebration. As they sipped their wine, she then went on to tell him that she had something very special arranged for his birthday, but it would have to wait just a little bit longer. She said he would understand soon enough. She then went on to say that she loved him more than he could imagine, that he was the best spouse any girl could ever want, and her only wish was that they could spend the rest of their lives together. As she talked so lovingly to him, he found it harder and harder to grab and hold on to what she was saying. It was like a cloud was enveloping his brain, and he was finding it more and more difficult to see, think, hear, understand. Anna could see that the drugs she had placed in the wine were having the desired effect. As Donald's eyes rolled back in his head, she reached out and grabbed his glass of wine before he totally lost consciousness and dropped it. She knew it would cause an awful stain, and she just wouldn't have it. As David's head fell back and his arms and legs just flopped, Anna knew that David was out for the count. Once again she kissed him on the lips, but this time ever so gently. She then whispered, "Happy birthday, sweetheart," and then turned to pick up the phone on the end table. It was time for the next step. It was some time before the darkness that had enveloped Donald began to fade. Whereas before, reality had slowly fallen apart, it was now coming back together, albeit slowly. His head was still in a bit of a fog, and his body felt numb all over. He tried to open his eyes, but the light was just too bright. "Can you hear me? Can you feel me holding your hand?" It was Anna. David had to concentrate. He had to will his brain to tell him what his hand was doing. And after a few short moments he could indeed feel somebody gently holding his left hand. Ye. He tried to answer with the word yes, but found his mouth so dry that he couldn't speak. Anna told him not to try to talk, just to nod his head, which he did. Again Anna stopped him. "Don't try to talk. I know you want to know what happened, and I will explain. Just nod if you understand." Once again Donald nodded. "Okay, if I go too fast, or you don't understand, just shake your head, okay?" Again Donald nodded. "Perfect. Okay, this all actually started a little over 2 years ago. I wanted to do something really special for our 5th wedding anniversary, but was at a total loss. I then had an inspiration. I would see if I could get you to tell me what you wanted without knowing it. So, I installed a key logger on your computer to see where you were going on the computer and what things you were looking for. Needless to say, I found a lot more than I had been looking for." Donald heard and understood each and every word she was saying and knew he was in trouble. He liked to look at pictures of pretty girls, and he was sure that would come as no great surprise to Anna. But he also frequented TG websites, pictures, fantasies, and stories about men wanting to be women. And even more damning, he had even written a few TG stories of his own, as well as talked to people in chat rooms about his inner demons. He did so only because he believed he was being totally anonymous and no one would have a clue. Anna could see tears forming in Donald's eyes. She had breached the inner defenses of his soul, and as expected, he was not taking it well. She tried to console him as she continued. "Please understand, I did this for you. When I realized the inner conflicts that were bearing down upon you, I knew what my gift to you must be, to resolve them. Unfortunately, it would take money to hire the professionals necessary to diagnose and cure your affliction. Money we just did not have, but my father did. I told him I needed $50,000, but I couldn't tell him why. If I ever had any question about my father's love, it was wiped away when he gave me the money without question. First, I found a very good therapist in the field of sexual identity disorder. Unfortunately, I couldn't hire the best because those prices would be well out of my range. But I did some research and found one that came very highly recommended and in my price range as well. I showed him the transcripts I had downloaded from your computer and asked him what we could do to cure you of this malady. I knew from reading the transcripts that this weighed heavily on you. His answer to me was devastating: there may not be a cure. Regardless, we came up with a course of action to further diagnose what could be done. You know me, I do not take no for an answer, and I was determined to find a solution. He said it would require that he speak to you directly. I did not see how this could happen and still remain a surprise gift for you. We discussed possibilities at great length when we finally realized the answer was lying right in front of us, the chat logs. And with that, Alex Jones was born. Donald's eyes showed that he was totally surprised when he heard that name. Alex Jones was a person he had met in a chat room a long time back. It had to be more than a year. Donald felt he found someone he could relate to anonymously, and since then has bared his soul to him. Anna continued. I can see you recognize that name. With the transcripts, we knew the chat sites you frequented, so we decided to provide the therapy in private. Because of patient/client privilege, he could not show me the transcripts of your conversations, but he has told me that without a doubt you do suffer from gender identity disorder. He said he has posed the question to you many times over, and in different ways, and the response was always the same, that you wished you were a girl. With over a year of transcripts, he felt he had more than enough evidence to sign off on your diagnosis. And as he suspected, in his opinion it was irreversible, and you would suffer from it for the rest of your life. Therefore, there was only one resolution for me. Since I could not turn things around, I decided we would go forward. As of last night, you had surgery to turn your out tie into an innie dot. Donald willed his hand to move over his groin area. It was very sore and heavily bandaged, but he could verify there was a definite flatness where there should have been a bulge. He knew Anna was telling the truth. And then a bit of confusion crept into his head, and Anna could see it. You are correct in thinking that there is something wrong here. I am sure you are well versed on the requirements for this kind of surgery. Whether or not you would ever have gone through with it, I am sure you would have read up on it. Getting a recommendation from a psychologist is only part of the battle. Before any reputable doctor will do the surgery, they also require you live a year in your chosen identity before making it permanent. I am not proud of what I had to do next, but I told myself I had to do it for your sake. It took a lot of searching, but eventually I found a doctor who would take Dr. Alex's recommendation at face value and use his year of diagnosis as your year trial. Unfortunately, it came at a very high price that I am ashamed of. Anna's eyes were tearing up at this point. I hope you can see fit to forgive me. I gave this man my body, but never my soul. Donald closed his eyes. Anna could not tell whether it was sadness or anger. She stood up a moment and walked to the far side of the room to compose herself. She then walked back over to Donald's side saying, quite flatly, I promised myself I would do this all in one sitting, so I'm going to finish one way or another. Okay, so here we are. You have had the surgery you have always dreamed of, but nothing else. No boobs, no hormones, or any other surgery. Once you have healed, you can get up and walk out of here and continue living as a man. Nobody would notice. Although you would have to take testosterone hormones for the rest of your life. Oh, and now you'd have to sit down to pee. Or you can continue what I have started and complete the transformation, become a complete woman. It is totally up to you. That is the gift I have given you, the opportunity to make the decision you have dreamed of making your entire life. Legally, you can sue and have me thrown in jail for a long, long time. I take full responsibility in what I have done, and have gone to great lengths to protect the other individuals involved. I did this fully believing that what I had done was fully what you have wanted. But if I am correct, and if you would still have me, I would like to remain by your side. I was serious when I said till death do us part, and I stand by that promise. I will always love you, whether you are a man or a woman. And in this great state of ours, gay marriage is legal, so we can stay married one way or another. With that I will leave you, and let you get some rest. Your cell phone is beside your bed, and you can call me or text me if and when you decide on a course of action from here. I look forward to hearing from you, and hope that it's to say that you still love me. And with that, Anna bent over and kissed Donald on the forehead and started out the door. Just as she reached the door, she turned around. One more thing. I guess this is a kind of a big piece of the puzzle too. I am pregnant, so I guess that is one more decision that needs to be made. Will this child grow up with one parent or two, and will it have a mom and a dad, or just two moms? If you ask me if it is yours, I would like to say I believe so. I love you, and hope I have given you everything you have ever wanted. Happy birthday. And she walked out the door.